Good afternoon to you, Mark South, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your hurricane outlook and discussion. It is now Thursday, October 17th, and we have some stuff to talk about here of a pretty serious nature. We always take these things seriously, whether or not they're hurricanes or these late season sort of spread out hybrid weird systems that we're going to discuss today with what we're calling PTC 16. What is that? It's another one of these terms that has been designated by us mere humans to say that this system in the Gulf of Mexico is a potential tropical cyclone. That's the PTC. This allows the National Hurricane Center to go ahead and begin issuing advisories, and it just helps the whole process to get things started, if you will, for this potential tropical cyclone as it looks like it's going to develop over the next day or so, maybe into a tropical storm or a subtropical storm. I know all these terms are just like, what? But the impacts are generally the same, and that's what we're really going to focus on. So here's what we have. PTC 16, if it does become a tropical or subtropical storm, if it gets a name other than a depression, the name would be Nestor, N-E-S-T-O-R. And here are the key messages. And you can see the number one, I'm assuming these are the most important bullet points, is a dangerous storm surge inundation of up to 5 feet above ground level. All right, I'm about 5'8", so all but my head would be underwater in certain areas if something like that came to pass. Now, it is very highly dependent on track, the fetch of wind, the angle of attack, the coastline, the tide level, all sorts of things, but they're modeling indicating that up to 5 feet of inundation could occur, and I'll show you where that is expected to happen in just a moment. If we look at the updated map here, let's look at the 3-day map first. This is the 2 p.m. Eastern Time update. They do an intermediate advisory at 2 p.m. And you can see that the cone of uncertainty, now this is where the center would be, over the arrow cone for the center. This tells you nothing of the impacts. Okay, this is for the center of circulation, these little circles with S's in them, and that it's within the cone a certain amount of time. All right, so that's just the track. The impacts could extend all the way down into the peninsula over here, and will extend all the way up here into the Carolinas. So this is going to be a very large impact event affecting millions of people. And in terms of what those impacts are, specifically, we will have to wait and see as this evolves. But this is what the track forecast looks like, and beyond 5 days, we can put that on, see if it'll let me. And you see it goes on out into the Atlantic, and depending on how large the wind field and so forth is, there could be impacts up here along the Chesapeake Bay and the Virginia Capes, etc., and the North Carolina Outer Banks. So let's take a look at what we know. So we go back to the public advisory, and here's what the 2 p.m. Eastern Time info was saying. Maximum sustained winds 35. Recon should be on its way out there now to check this out, and we'll know from the Air Force recon plane out of Biloxi, Keesler Air Force Base, exactly what's going on with this system. These are your tropical storm warnings and whatnot all through here. Read the public advisory. I'm not going to read it to you. That's a waste of time. You read it. Check it out. If you don't do that already, I highly suggest that you do. And then the main thing that I want to show you here is the hazards affecting land. And again, this is what's highlighted in the bullet points, that a storm surge of 3 to 5 feet above ground level from Indian Pass, Florida, to however you say that, Florida. What is that? Chassahowitzka? It's probably not even close, knowing how some of these names are pronounced. I'll show you where that is on a map in just a little bit. But 3 to 5 feet, and then from that place in Florida down to Clearwater Beach, 2 to 4 feet. So storm surge seems to be the number one issue here. And then wind, tropical storm conditions. All right, so where this impacts the areas that Michael affected last year, that's going to kind of like being rubbing salt in a wound, or whatever the phrase is. But it's not, horrible. We're not talking about more than likely a hurricane. it's not out of the realm of possibility. You never say never, but this is going to be a large windstorm, heavy rain, surge, big impact event, almost like a glorified nor'easter over the very warm Gulf of Mexico. Tropical characteristics mixed in with some mid-latitude storm characteristics, whatever. The bottom line for you listening to me and watching these graphics and all this stuff that I'm presenting, if you live in this area, these are the hazards that will most likely affect you. With an A, affect you, right? And so, that's surge and wind and rainfall. And you guys really need the rainfall down there, and a lot of us do in the Southeast. And with it moving quickly, we shouldn't see any more than about 5 inches. If we see a 6 or 7 inch amount somewhere, okay. But this will be moving quickly. It won't have time to create a flood event, and that is great news, obviously. So here's what I'm talking about. Check out the visible satellite animation here from Tropical Tidbits. Levi Cowan's site right there. He's generating the code that makes all this possible. And this is what the satellite looks like, the visible shot. And you can see it's, a large system. Center of circulation maybe down here. Looks like there is some rotation broad up here. It's not consolidated perfect, and therefore it's not going to have a chance to really strengthen much until and unless it does consolidate more. And you can see that it takes up a very large part of the Gulf with its cloud structure. There is some diffluent flow aloft, wind spreading out. And as long as this goes with the flow, it has a chance to strengthen. It would be different if we had, the strong upper level winds coming this way and this potential tropical cyclone down here was coming in from the east into it. Then it would just be decapitated, and that would be that. When they move with the flow, then you can have the opportunity for everything to align at some point if conditions allow. And there's no way to know for sure if that's going to happen. You can look at all the modeling that you want. It's just going to have to be an hour-by-hour look at what's going on with the satellite and then eventually radar. The bottom line is from southeast Louisiana, portions of the Mississippi coast, you're kind of tucked away, and in this case that'll help you, all the way over through the Alabama and Florida Gulf coasts, and then eventually, the southeast coast itself plus the inland areas. All those areas are just highlighted in yellow, and including all the interior parts as well, could fill it all in. You're going to have a stormy time coming up Friday, Saturday, and maybe into Sunday. And there will be impacts. Trees will be down in some places. There will be power outages. Some places will get very heavy rain. Some places won't. Some places along here, maybe up towards St. Mark's, maybe Cedar Key, maybe Homosassa, and then that, I'll show you in a minute, that Chasa, Hiawatha, or whatever place, I'll show you that. That's the storm surge area that, turn that off, that we were talking about. So, it's not a focused hurricane like Michael, thank goodness, obviously, but it does have impacts. So don't take it lightly, like, it's nothing. It could be something. And there, I know that there's like a festival, a seafood festival, I believe, in Cedar Key this weekend. I was corresponding with the emergency management director and the fire chief down there. And he was like, this is not the best weekend for this. Come on. So it's going to have impacts. That's the bottom line. Looking at it structurally, this is yesterday, the vorticity signature. And you can see that right here was the system then. Now let's fast forward to today. It's gotten stronger, a more solid signature, but it is not quite consolidated. That is, still pretty linear. It looks like a line instead of a circle. It's not bundled. And unless it does that, it bundles up, the energy will stay spread out over a larger area. And that is the subtropical nature to it. That sort of hybrid, stretched out energy is that sort subtropical look. Again, these are all classifications, scientific, etc. Bottom line, this area through here, you're going to get some impacts. So I'll be watching this closely, plus the satellite imagery here, obviously, and see how this all winds up. And in fact, you can tell this is kind of oblong shape, and you can see that the convection overall is kind of oblong shape as well. And, you know, it's over warm water. It does have a few things going for it. Going to be impossible to know just how strong this could become until it actually starts doing so. The models are a little bit helpful, but this is a weird situation. Later in the season, you got a lot of energy coming in from the atmosphere up here, interacting with it. Very complex overall, to say the least. All right, so the GFS, for what it's worth, looking at one of the global models, we'll look at the GFS, and then we'll look at the Euro, and then we're going to look at some geography. All right, so the 12Z GFS, this is about 6 hours out, so this is valid about right now as I'm producing this video. And as you can see, you know, hopefully you know your geography. This is Florida, the Peninsula, Panhandle, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas. And this is all the rainfall, and this is the way the model is depicting it. I'm showing you a different level of the atmosphere. This is showing us the 6-hour averaged precipitation rate and the mean sea level pressure and some other things in the atmosphere. This just gives us a good idea of what it would look like on a weather map, so to speak. I like this particular shot when we're looking at something that's not very well organized. So this is 6 hours. This is basically right now. All right, so here we are, 24 hours out. Tomorrow morning, you can see the pressure field associated with it, again, kind of stretched out. You don't see a lot of isobars in there, very tightly packed or anything. So a broad wind field, but lots of oranges and reds in there. Those are the 6-hour precipitation rate, the average 6-hour rate. Bottom line, heavy rain. Heavy, heavy rain. So let's move it out to 36 hours. Very, very heavy rainfall now. And there's a low pressure center trying to consolidate, and it's down to about 996 millibars or so. And so there will be some wind in there, 40, 50 mile per hour wind. That will start to come in and impact the Apalachicola area, you know, areas that were impacted by Michael, Cape San Blas, all the way over to Indian Pass, Gulf Pines, Mexico Beach, yes, Carabel, East Point, and areas inland. You know, there will be impacts. But here's what I want you to note. Remember, the wind typically follows these isobars, and the wind will be funneling up this way as this approaches. The wind's going to just pile up in the Big Bend. All right, and so that's going to push water. St. Mark's, Cedar Key, you know, Horseshoe Beach, those areas could see 3 to 5 feet of inundation above ground, and that's enough to cause damage. And on top of that, of course, will be waves. At 48 hours out, there it is, making landfall near Mexico Beach, Cape San Blas area, with the center of circulation, according to the GFS anyway. And I know you're like, you got to be kidding me. And believe me, I'm the same. I'm like, come on, those. But at least in this case, the center is not like Michael, where the core was the nuclear bomb, so to speak. In this situation, the center is not nearly as impactful as all of this over here. And this onshore flow right into Cedar Key and vicinity could prove to be very problematic during the day Saturday. And areas inland from there in that right front quadrant, Orlando, Ocala in vicinity, Gainesville, which is where I'm headed tonight, all of that could be impacted by severe weather. It looks like a squall line right there. This is going to be a major event in terms of how many people are affected. And a lot of people are going to be like, daggone, man, that really took me by surprise. And as these things go, there will be some people who get lucky and very little will happen, and they'll say, well, that was all a bunch of hype for nothing. So I've done this long enough to know, you know what, let me just put it to you this way. I live here in Wilmington, and I'm going to drive down to Gainesville, roughly in here somewhere, and I'm going to set up cameras all along this area and some pressure sensors and wind sensors. Do you think that I would do that if I didn't think this would be an impactful event? I mean, I get paid to do it. It's my job. You know, patrons on Patreon support what I do through crowdfunding, and I work with the Weather Channel as a freelancer, so to speak. They license the video that I set up, these cameras, but we don't waste everybody's time. And if I'm going, it means it's going to be an impactful event. And like I said, I take these seriously, and when I see that, I say, okay, loose, kind of east-weighted system, kind of has that comma shape to it. Good in the fact that it won't be your classic, surgical strike hurricane like Michael. This is more like being carpet bombed over a larger area with lesser artillery. I don't want to make it sound like carpet bombed by like big bombs or whatever, but do you understand my analogy? A lot more people than Michael, but less impactful in terms of the severity. Okay, that's what I'm getting at. So that's 48 hours out. It moves inland, and look at that. The rainfall moves out ahead of it. And what's really neat about this, in terms of my project, I've got a camera here in my yard, right on my old Tahoe, sitting in my driveway, mounted up on its old rusting roof rack. And then along my route somewhere, I'm going to drop other cameras, a couple of them, and maybe one of them down here somewhere. I've got 7 this time, and I'm going to kind of try to spread them out. We'll talk about this more in just a moment. But anyway, this is overnight Saturday into Sunday, and then it moves on up into the Outer Banks. There could be some surge on the backside from Pamlico Sound. I mean, I wish I could go out there and tackle it there. Maybe I will. Maybe I can outrun this sucker. Yeah, good luck with that. And get out to the Outer Banks. Wouldn't that be something? I've got a Dodge 1500 as my rental truck. Thank you, crowdfunding. And who knows? Maybe I can do it. Not that I would speed or anything. I'm just saying, if I can, I will. Put it that way. You know me. If you follow me long enough, I am determined. Anyhow, this goes on up, and there's the impacts perhaps to the Capes, Cape Hatteras, and points north, Virginia Capes, and so forth. So be ready for that. Let's slide this over. We'll do geography at the end and talk about my plan. So the Euro, a different perspective. We'll look at the Euro here. This is the 850 millibar. Again, this shows me the vorticity. This is the initial map. Here's our system here. And we go and look at 24 hours out here. Still kind of loose, broad overall, concentrated vorticity on the north end. We'll see. The models may be having a hard time. I don't know. The odds are this does not intensify significantly, but you never, ever, ever say never. At 48 hours, very similar to the GFS, with an implied landfall somewhere along the Florida Panhandle for the center, but there's these pieces of energy coming in, focusing into the Big Bend area, and we've already been over that. You know by now the playbook. Everything on the right-hand side of this over here is going to have the worst impacts overall, not near the center necessarily, unless it's able to bundle and focus. And we'll be able to track that. We got 2 days, and a lot can happen in those 2 days. That's day 2. Let me refresh this, and we'll go look at day 3, which is right here, and we'll pull up the image. So by day 3, very similar to the GFS, with the broad, large center of this storm system over the Carolinas, North Carolina, pretty much right over my house. So if I can get back, but then I got to go back to Florida and get all my cameras, so that'll be interesting. We'll see. We'll see. I got to be careful and not push myself too much. But anyhow, that's what it looks like from the modeling perspective. We'll see. Hopefully it stays broad and loose like this, and will bring a nice swath of rain in this area where we need it without major impacts. I just don't see how we're going to get away with not seeing surge impacts around here in Florida. We could get lucky, but the setup is for that flow to push right into the Big Bend area and beyond and south of there and create some impacts. All right. So my plan, again, I'm going to leave Wilmington as soon as this video is published. I'm going to get in the truck. I'm going to head south. I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to stay in Gainesville tonight. Tomorrow, head out wherever it is, somewhere around here. Head over to Cedar Key, set up a camera system there. I might drop 1 or 2, I don't know, somewhere up here along the way. We'll see. I've got these special highway clamp things that I can put out that one of our patrons, a gentleman named Scott from Raleigh, North Carolina, that he donated to our cause. Awesome devices where I can clamp a camera system right to the Jersey wall of the interstate. And boy, that could be really neat to just kind of watch somewhere along my route. And then I'll spread cameras around just like I did for Michael. Certainly one in St. Mark's, probably one down here in Gulf Pines. Some great people I know down there. And got to put one in Mexico Beach just because, right? maybe one in Carabel. We'll see. I've got 7. I've got 4 pressure sensors for what it's worth, and 1 anemometer weather station. I own 4, but I'm going to bring 1 with me because I'm by myself on this one, by the way, generally. There's people that'll help out while I'm down there, but it's a lot to set out if you're one person, and it's not a big-time wind event, so I'm not as concerned about that. But to re-emphasize one more time, and we're going to pull this up. I'm going to show you where that place is. Let's see, type CHAS. There it is, campground along that river. So where is that river? Chassahowitzka, however you say it. And I don't mean to laugh at it. It's down here, just south of Homosassa, right there. If we pull out, you see where it is on the marker near Crystal River. There's Cedar Key right there. So this area could see some significant surge. It's all dependent on a lot of things. We've been over this. You never know for sure. But from Indian Pass, which is roughly up here, all the way over to that marker, 3 to 5 feet of inundation is possible. And then south of there to Clearwater area, 2 to 4. All right? So inland areas, squally weather. That includes Gainesville, Lake City, Perry. Yeah, rainy, trees, limbs down, power outages, whatever. A very large storm system. That's what you need to think of. The impact, the impact, the impact. I need you to focus on that rather than, if it's not a hurricane, I do not care. I forgot to pull up my Patreon page. Is it going to let me? Yes, it will. So for our patrons, don't forget, if you're already signed up and you're at the $10 level or higher right here, then make sure you log into the HurricaneTrack Insider site. That gets boosted at the $25 level with the GoPro Cam access. But if you've already signed up, you know what I'm talking about. And if you want to sign up, it's not too late. This is not just hurricane season stuff. This crowdfunding helps to support my efforts all year round. I do winter storm stuff, off-season discussions. We have a podcast starting in December and a new television type series beginning in January called The Hurricane Highway. What do they say? Come for the storms, stay for the programming. Something like that. That's a good way to look at it. It's not just, subscribe and see hurricanes and their effects. It's a lot more than that, and for those that are already a part of it, you know what I'm talking about. So go to patreon.com/HurricaneTrack and sign up and stick with us for the next 6 months until it's hurricane season again. Actually, 8 months because it starts next June, but you get the idea. It's not just hurricane season that we're doing this, and a lot of what I'm able to do on this field mission coming up is 100% supported by these folks right here. Just under 300 patrons right now. Thank you all so much. You have made a world of difference this year, and for those that are part of it, you already know what I'm talking about. All right, so I will be streaming live via YouTube the moment I leave, all right, and that will be publicly available. I won't be monitoring the YouTube chat. I can't while I'm driving, and we'll have moderators in there and so forth, so anybody with bad behavior, you're gone. Just like I tell my kids, I'll treat you just like I treat them and put you into timeout or take your iPad away from you. Whatever. So behave, please. Most of the people do, but you know how the internet can be. It's like the Wild West sometimes. But stream live from the vehicle the entire time. Anywhere I've got coverage and I'm awake, I'm streaming. The cameras I'll set up, those will go on HurricaneTrack Insider. Our $10 patrons and up can check that out. If you have our app, which I no longer have available for purchase because we're phasing it out, the cameras should be in the app, but I can't guarantee it. The app's just no good. We're doing some different things, and things are changing, and for the better. We don't necessarily need an app. We'll talk about that later. But if you do have the app on iOS or Android already, yes, check it out, and hopefully the cameras will be there as I set them up. You already paid for the app. I'm going to try to get the stuff in there. It's a pain in the butt. It's easier to do stuff on the web, believe it or not, than trying to keep up with updates in app world. But I'm dragging out this long story. Forget it. That's where I'm going with this. Anyhow, I got to finish packing and hit the road. It's almost 2:30 Eastern. I'll post updates along the way. When I get to Gainesville tonight, I'll do a quick video update from there. and we'll see what happens. And, of course, if you're tuned in live on YouTube, you'll hear me talk about things as they happen live. That's the beauty of live. Hey, look, thanks for tuning in as always. This should be the last hurricane-type field mission, tropical field mission, or subtropical, whatever, of the season. And we'll try to make the best of it that we can. I thank you all for supporting me on whatever level, even if you're just watching. That's awesome in and of itself, and I thank you. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. I'll talk to you from the road.